Hello everyone, I'm Saipriya, a senior cloud engineer from the Virtual Code Innovate team. Let's talk about leveraging webhooks to integrate Jenkins with Visual Builder Studio. In this video, you're going to learn how to trigger a Jenkins job whenever the Git repo gets updated. You'll also learn how to link a Jenkins job with a merge request and receive notifications in the Visual Builder Studio whenever the build job runs on Jenkins. Log into OCI console. Navigate to Visual Builder Studio under Developer Services. Pick the compartment where your Visual Builder Studio instance is spun up. Open the Service console. From the organization page, you can manage the projects and update the organization's properties. Here, we are going to create a new project. We are going to give it a name, and under Security, select Shared Project in order to share your project with other members within your team. Select Empty Project Repository. Under the project properties, we are going to leave it as is. And for the purpose of this demonstration, I'm going to skip adding the team members. The Visual Builder Studio platform helps your team effectively plan and manage your work throughout all the stages of application development lifecycle, which includes designing, building, testing, and deployment. You have now successfully created your project. In the navigation pane on the left, select Git. Go ahead and create a Git repository. Give it a name and import a sample project for testing. We are now going to import a public Git repository. Go ahead and click Create. The files from the Git repo are imported successfully. Our first task is to create a Jenkins build trigger webhook to trigger a Jenkins job on an update to a Git repository. Log into Jenkins console with admin user role. You'll now install Build Authorization Token Root plugin. Let's create a new Jenkins job. Select Freestyle Project and click OK. Once the project is created, we need to make sure that we configure the same Git repository used within the Visual Builder Studio. To do this, we need to add credentials so that the Jenkins can access the private GitHub repository hosted within Visual Builder Studio. For credentials, choose Global Credentials as the domain, username and password as the kind. Enter OCI account username and password. Here, we'll give the ID as VBS_Git and click Add. Next, add repository URL. You may notice that there's an error until you add the repository credentials. Update the branch specifier to star to refer to all the branches. Then, select the trigger builds remotely and provide the authentication token. Here, I'll set the authentication token as my_job_token. Additionally, I'll select the poll SCN to allow Jenkins to periodically check for changes within the repository. In the build step, add execute shell command to list all the files within the GitHub repository. Finally, click Save. Switch to the project admin page within Visual Builder Studio and create a webhook. Select the type as Jenkins build trigger. Give it a name and paste the Jenkins build server URL. Set the job name to be the same as the job name in Jenkins that you just created. Select the build server security as build root plugin and update the remote build token as my_job_token. If you remember, this is the same token name specified in the Jenkins build job. Select the repository from the drop-down and pick all branches and click Create. To test the webhook, create a README file from the console and commit the changes. As soon as we commit the changes, it should trigger the webhook and generate logs in both Visual Builder Studio as well as Jenkins console. The next step is to integrate Jenkins job with a merge request within Visual Builder Studio. First, I will deactivate the webhook that triggers a build upon every commit. Then, I will create a webhook for Jenkins to handle the merge request. Let's give it a name and provide the server URL from the Jenkins server. Activate the webhook and ignore the SSL errors. Select the repository and configure the security as build token root plugin. Set the build token as my_job_token and click create. Next, go to Git repository that we have already set up within Visual Builder Studio and create a branch. We will name the branch as sample. Then, create a merge request by selecting the repository, setting the target branch to main, and review branch as sample. Choose the reviewers from the list. Here, I'm going to select my email. And ensure that you do not forget to add the linked builds. Without this step, the webhook will not function properly. Update the summary and click create. Now return to Jenkins job we created and configure the project to be parameterized. Add a string parameter with the name git_repo_branch and set the default value to the review branch name, that is sample. Click Save. Next, go back to VBS and update the README file. Commit the code changes to the sample branch. This will trigger the merge request webhook. You'll be able to see the logs both in Visual Builder Studio as well as Jenkins. One final step is to create the Jenkins notifications plugin. With this, you'll be able to receive notifications in the Visual Builder Studio projects activity feed from Jenkins when the build job completes. You will now create an incoming webhook with the type set to Jenkins notification plugin, give it a name, activate the plugin, and update the server URL. Make sure to track the build result and ongoing builds. Copy the notification URL and save it in a text file. Next, switch to the Jenkins console and install the notifications plugin. Open the Jenkins job and add job notification endpoint. Add the endpoint and update the URL with the notification URL you just copied. Perform a git commit from the Git repository hosted within Visual Builder Studio and then commit the code. The Jenkins job will be triggered and you will see the logs, which is due to the test notification plugin. You'll also notice that there is notifications plugin has been triggered. You'll see the activity stream of the Jenkins job within Visual Builder Studio. We have now successfully configured build trigger, merge request, and notifications webhook on Visual Builder Studio.